if you're dealing with the Quran and talking about Islam, this topic was going to come up.
Islam is so oppressive. I don't know what Islam you've been talking about, B.
Desert climate.
Are you a terrorist?
Do you support what happened on October 7th?
Well, I don't consider it worth it considering what happened in Gaza and all the innocent people that died, but I consider it worth it in a sense of we finally got other countries' attention.
It's my human right. I am allowed to cover. You don't have to agree.
There is something fundamentally ludicrous about somebody dressed as you are talking the language of modern human rights.
Well, obviously speaking, as a Muslim woman right now, you know, all this talk about there being a fear of us, well, fear stems from ignorance. For them to be fearful, they need to understand us, and we need to understand them. In British schools, some of us go to university here, we work here. We understand the British culture, but do you really understand the Islamic culture?
Pardon me, that's not the role.
You can't possibly understand the British culture because there's been hundreds of years. And my mother's generation, because I too am a Muslim, my mother's generation, they were beaten, bullied and burnt because they wanted to get rid of all of this and be seen as proper equals. You're betraying that history. And this country fought for women.
Is that, I mean, many people are confused about why you wear it.
Yes.
Is the face in your culture, I mean, I don't think it's an Islamic thing, is it? It's a cultural thing. Am I right in saying that? We had an earlier guest saying the very same thing.
It's an Islamic and a religious interpretation.
You do believe
It's not talking about a time of today. However, one of the difficulties people are going to have with the Quran is that while it is entrenched in the context of when the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, was alive, it at the same time has to be universal. Here is the big thing that I knew about Islam, is that you are allowed up to 4 wives. However, the Quran says you can only have 4 wives if you can love each of those wives equally, which the Quran does basically say that's very much impossible.
Is that it now for life? Are you settled now? You'll just stay with this woman?
I can have one if I want. If I feel like I want one more, I can. Tell 4 women.
You're allowed 4 women?
Yes, 4 women I can have if I want to.
So let's talk about the big elephant in the room, that within Surah 4 it advises that if your wife is disobedient, you should ignore her in bed and hit her once. While that is permissible, I can imagine the largest swathing majority of Muslims don't just do that. In the same reason I can say that the Bible talks about this, and I don't think Christians around the world are going around smacking their wives.
Editing skeptic here. I want to just go ahead and clarify something right now, because the whole Islam Christianity Tuco Quay thing really annoys me. Let's get this straight. Christians and Jews do not worship the same God as Muslims. Muslims worship Allah. Allah is his name, God is his title. Christians worship Yahweh. Yahweh is his name, God is his title. They're not the same person.
This is all starting to feel like a repeat of 9/11.
What?
How, you may ask? The media's constant dissemination of misinformation and hate against Muslims.
The Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, when he was in his 40s, 50s, married Aisha, who was 6, and consummated his marriage with her at the age of 9. And how do I feel about that?
Our family, we married when we were very young.
I think it's a real moot point.
Girlfriend or?
She's my mother.
Your mother?
Saudi Arabia announced extreme heat made this year's Hajj pilgrimage a deadly one for more than 1,300 people. The pilgrimage ended last week. Temperatures to Mecca and other holy sites soared above 124 degrees.
She's just wearing her headscarf, which I believe she is.
I'm not allowed to come inside.
No, she's wearing her.
Not wearing her headscarf, but she is, so.
Yeah, she is.
Helping Hussein's sisters make tacos for our last iftar together made me realize I'd spent almost the entire month hanging out exclusively with guys. But Islam's strictures for women create an entirely different minefield for me to navigate.
I do have to be super careful not to touch you because of, like, skin contact. Is that
I mean, if brothers, uncles, grandparents, anyone who you cannot marry, can see you without your headscarf and can have skin contact with you.
Oh, I see. Okay. Not to put it on.
I put my scarf on before I turned 11.
Oh, wow.
And my parents had no idea I was gonna do it. Like, you can't force it on anybody. If they're ready to put it on, they put it on. If they don't want to put it on, that's their decision.
Opinion, when she leave her house, should be covered up.
Hijab, which literally means curtain, but is more conceptually a sense of modesty or discretion between the sexes.
Why do you guys not have to cover them? There's some beautiful men.
Yeah, there is some beautiful men, and I like your question, why don't the man cover? No, if you put a man and a woman, who attracts the most? The woman. The woman is the beauty.
Hence mosques having a separate, though not always equal, space for men and women to pray in. Hijab is supposed to apply to both sexes, but in practice, the lion's share of the burden falls on women.
People stare, I don't mind, because I'm like, okay, it's something different.
How do you smile?
Yeah, how do you smile?